The next category of visuals is photos. Generally speaking, photos serve one of three purposes on a slide. The first is the same purpose as icons, which is just to give a visual boost to the content. This is something you can see well here with this slide on CO2 emissions. Each of these blocks of text has a relevant photo next to it, which helps me understand what the text is referring to. Just like with the icons, the photo isn't necessary, but it helps me understand the content just a little bit quicker. The benefit to using icons in this situation would be that they usually look a bit cleaner. But the downside is that for more technical topics, it can be tough to find an icon that works. If you're going to use a photo, make sure the size, shape, and look are all consistent. And if you can, you may also want to add a small shadow like they've done here to help it look just a little bit more professional. Then the next purpose for adding photos to a slide is to show something the audience might need to see in order to understand. Unlike in the previous case, this is where the audience might not have a clear idea for what you're talking about, even if they were to read the text. And often this comes with slides that are more technical in nature. Here's an example of where a photo is not only helpful, it's necessary. The slide is trying to show different components of a heavy-duty autonomous drill. And without the photos, we wouldn't really be able to visualize what the text is referring to. Then the last purpose is purely for aesthetics. This is where the photo doesn't help me understand the slide any better, but instead just makes the slide look a little bit more visually appealing. This is most commonly seen on title slides or transition slides where there isn't really any content to show other than a few words. This slide from EY provides a nice introduction to the presentation. It looks clean and professional, and even though the photo isn't directly connected to the topic, it's still nice to look at. Then later in the presentation, there are more photos which serve the same purpose. In this case, there's more of a connection to the words on the slide, but mostly it's just here so we don't have to look at a largely blank slide. So as you can see, photos can really help your slide, but they're also dangerous because they very commonly get misused. Take a look at this slide, for example, and ask yourself how the photos help you understand the slide better. The overall takeaway from the slide is stated here in the title. Gifting remains a significant part of luxury spending. And the chart clearly supports that, as do these two quotes. But then the photos don't really help me understand what a gifted luxury good is, nor do they help me process the text in these quotes. Instead, they just distract from the other, more important parts of the slide. So if you're going to use a photo, make sure you really consider whether or not the photo is helping your audience understand your message more clearly. And if you're using it purely for aesthetic purposes, make sure that it's part of a title or transition slide, or that it's already part of your company's template. In addition to the visuals we've already discussed, there's also a broad category of other graphics that include things like logos, drawings, diagrams, and maps, among other things. And each of these can also be used to help bring clarity to your slides, such as on this slide where the maps draw attention to different cities within Australia and Asia, or this slide which uses logos to make the organizations it's talking about a little bit easier to recognize, along with these paper graphics to call attention to these as quotes. Adding visuals to your slide can really help improve the clarity of your presentation. However, it's very common to overdo it, either by adding too many visuals, adding visuals that don't actually help the audience, or adding visuals that are poorly formatted or otherwise unprofessional looking, such as clip art, animations, or transitions. Often you'll see inexperienced presentation developers become committed to a certain visual without considering whether or not it really belongs. So whenever you're adding a new visual, be sure to ask yourself whether or not it actually improves comprehension and whether or not it fits with the overall look and feel of the slide. In other words, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So now returning to our Acme slide, it's clear that we need to visualize the message just a little bit more. And if you notice, there's a really obvious visual we can add to improve this slide right away. Instead of this table, we can add a chart or multiple charts to help the data pop just a little bit more. And if we wanted to, we could probably also add some icons or other visuals to this slide as well, but we don't want to overdo it or add something that will distract more than it helps. So for now, let's just keep it as it is. And already after the first two principles, the slide is starting to look more clear and more credible. So to recap, visuals can really help enhance your slides and improve readability. The first way to visualize your message is to add a chart, which allows you to show quantitative data in a way that is easy to understand and conveys credibility. Generally speaking, this is the best type of visual to add to your slide. Next is to add a qualitative visual, which can include frameworks, flowcharts, logic trees, and matrices, among other things. These types of visuals are especially helpful when you're trying to replace text. Another way is to add icons, which can help make the text of your slides just a little bit easier to understand quickly, and can also improve the overall look of a slide. You can also add photos, which can be used to help understand text, show something to the audience they might not be able to visualize, or to add an aesthetic look to your title and transition slides. Then lastly, you can utilize other types of graphics such as logos, drawings, diagrams, and maps, which when used correctly can also help the audience comprehend the content of your slides with less effort. As you use these tools to visualize your message, it's important to always consider the purpose of your visual and whether or not it adds or takes away from the clarity of your presentation.